One night, one man, one fight that changed the name of an entire nation. He was on his knees in the mud, and he was not winning. Hands locked around a stranger's robe, knuckles white, breath ragged, blood and river water mixing on his face. And the strangest part wasn't the violence. It was the eyes of the man he was fighting. Calm, patient, like nothing Jacob could do would ever be enough to end this on his terms. This is the story of how Jacob became Israel. Jacob was a schemer his whole life. He'd stolen his brother Esau's birthright, lied to his dying father for a blessing that was never his, built a fortune through 20 years of cunning. Esau had sworn to kill him for it, and tonight Esau was finally coming back into his life, with 400 men marching behind him. So Jacob sent everyone he loved across the river ahead of him. His wives, his children, everything he owned. He stood alone on the bank and watched the last torches vanish into the dark on the other side. For the first time in his life, Jacob had no plan left, no trick left to play, no clever angle to work. So he did the one thing he had never needed to do before. He prayed. The fire burned down to embers. The wind stopped. Even the insects went quiet, as if the whole wilderness was holding its breath for what was coming. And then, in the dark across the river, something moved. A man stepped out of the trees. No greeting, no warning, no explanation. He didn't ask Jacob's name. He didn't announce who he was or why he had come. He simply walked forward. And there was something about his stillness, about the way the wind moved through every leaf and branch around him, but never touched him, that made every survival instinct Jacob had ever relied on scream at once. Jacob rose to his feet, every muscle coiling, hand moving instinctively toward his belt. And then, without a single word, the stranger lunged and seized him.
I hope you are enjoying the video, and please tell me where you are watching from.
They went down into the mud together. This was not a polite contest. This was raw, brutal, close-quarters wrestling. Fists and forearms and knees, both men hauling each other through the shallows of the river, water exploding around their feet with every move. Jacob was thrown once hard into the river itself. He came up soaked, furious, and immediately lunged back into the fight without a second's hesitation. He slammed the stranger backward with everything 45 years of survival had built into his body. And the stranger took every bit of it, and never once looked like he was struggling. No sweat, no strain, no urgency, just patience. The unbothered patience of something that had never lost a single fight in its existence and wasn't entirely sure it was even fighting one now. The stars turned overhead. An hour passed, then 2, then 3. Jacob had wrestled his whole life for birthright, for blessing, for wives, for wages, and winning had always, eventually, come down to outsmarting someone. But this enemy could not be outrun, could not be outtalked, could not be outwitted. And somewhere in the dark, soaked to the bone, mud in his beard, Jacob began to understand that. And still, he held on. His grip became the only thing left of him. Calloused hands twisted into the stranger's robe, fingers locked past the point of pain. The kind of grip that comes from a man who has decided, somewhere deep beneath conscious thought, that letting go is no longer an option his body will allow. Then the sky began to change, the deepest black easing slowly toward blue at the horizon. Morning was coming, and with it, something shifted in the stranger. He stopped struggling. He reached out one hand, moving slowly, almost gently, and touched Jacob's hip. Light, not an explosion. Something closer to a door blown open in total silence. Jacob's hip gave way instantly, wrenched from its socket by a single touch from a being who had been holding back his full strength the entire night. Jacob collapsed sideways into the mud, gasping, the pain total and immediate, a sound tearing out of him that he didn't recognize as his own voice. And the stranger stood over him, having never moved, never strained, never even raised his voice above a whisper. The truth of what Jacob had actually been wrestling all night landed on him completely. And Jacob, broken on one knee, hip useless beneath him, tears cutting through the mud on his face, reached up with both shaking hands and grabbed the stranger's robe again. The stranger told him to let go because the day was breaking. And Jacob said the only thing left in him to say, he would not let go unless the stranger blessed him. Think about what that demand actually was. This was a man who had spent his entire life taking blessings by deception, dressing as his brother, lying to his dying father, manipulating his uncle for 20 years. Now, broken in the mud, with nothing left to offer but his refusal to release his grip, Jacob demanded a blessing honestly for the first time in his life. The stranger asked him his name. The last time someone had asked Jacob that question, he lied. He said he was Esau. He stole his brother's identity to steal his brother's future. Now, kneeling in the mud at the edge of dawn, broken and exposed, he told the truth, Jacob. And then the stranger did something extraordinary. He knelt down, bringing himself level with the broken man in front of him, and told him his name would
no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men, and have prevailed.
Israel, the man who fights God. The sun broke fully over the horizon as the name was spoken, gold light flooding the riverbank, the whole sky catching fire with morning. Jacob asked for the stranger's name in return, and the stranger only answered with a question of his own. Why did Jacob need to ask? And then he blessed him there, in the mud, in the breaking light, and was simply gone. No flash, no sound, just absence, where, a moment ago, there had been the most overwhelming presence Jacob had ever encountered in his life. Jacob rose slowly, one hand pressed hard against his ruined hip, and looked around the empty riverbank, the churned mud, the displaced stones, the only proof that any of it had happened at all.
This place shall be called Peniel, for I have seen God face to face.
Face to face, and yet his life had been preserved. Then he limped the rest of the way to the river. He would limp for the rest of his life. The wound never fully healed, and maybe it was never supposed to. Some encounters with the divine are not meant to leave you feeling better. They are meant to leave you marked, permanently, in a way you carry into every single day that follows. He waded across the Jabbok, every step uneven, every step costing him something it hadn't cost the night before. And on the far bank, his wife Rachel saw him coming and ran the distance between them to meet him. Jacob went into that river scheming. He came out surrendered. He went in with his hands clenched tight around everything he could grasp, control, and manipulate into existence through sheer force of will. He came out with his hands open, dependent, for the first time in his entire life, on a God he could no longer outrun, outwit, or outlast. His new name became the name of a nation, 12 sons, 12 tribes, a people who would carry his story, this story, for 4,000 years, and counting. And maybe the greatest mystery of that night isn't who the stranger truly was, though theologians and scholars have wrestled with that exact question for thousands of years since. Maybe the greatest mystery is this: why did he let Jacob win? Maybe he wanted to be held.